From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the NREPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
All right, welcome into the 1011 Now Alert Center. I'm Danielle Schenk with the NREPORT Husker Show, brought to you by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Sports Director Kevin Seuss joining me now. And Kevin, you're a busy guy, but especially lately, the Huskers just keep giving you a lot to talk about.
Which is a great thing. I mean, spring, you never know what it's going to be. But right now, a softball team that's ranked number 1 according to Softball America, a baseball team that just swept number 12 USC and is climbing in the rankings, now in contention to host a regional. It could be a very electric May in the city of Lincoln if both of these teams, baseball and softball, continue to play at the way that they are right now, not to mention some other sports which have had fantastic finishes, most notably men's gymnastics, Nebraska wrestling, and track and field, by the way. They've got a new outdoor venue in which they're competing at, and there's a lot of buzz just next to the icebox, just north of the Devaney Center.
Yeah, absolutely. Normally, spring's a little bit quieter, but yeah, as you've been mentioning, a lot of sports just really being active here in this stretch. And we'll kind of start with men's gymnastics here. Here's a picture of them from the NCAA tournament. Tell us a little bit about what happened, Kevin.
Well, Nebraska as a team finished 4th. They've finished in the top 5 in every year since 2017. But the best part of men's gymnastics, and Danny, I love the fact that we're starting right there because this is a story that needs to be told, probably isn't as commonly known across Husker Nation as it should. The gymnastics team played this season in honor of Jim Hartung, a Nebraska legend who tragically passed away weeks before this season began. So they have competed every meet with heavy hearts. Jim Hartung was the last NCAA champion in the still rings from the University of Nebraska. Lo and behold, this year Nebraska wins a rings individual national championship. Asher Cohen, who is also the NCAA's Specialist of the Year. So a storybook type thing that happened with the men's gymnastics team, competing with heavy hearts, but then having this very poignant moment at the end of the season, Asher Cohen winning a national championship in the rings while competing in memory of Jim Hartung.
Yeah, so that happened back on April 18th, and just as you can see with the picture, there's everyone who is in that picture and what they scored and got at nationals. Just, I mean, you know, we don't normally talk about gymnastics, men's gymnastics, women's gymnastics, but, you know, nice to highlight them here this spring.
The first individual national champion for Nebraska since 1999. Hartung, by the way, he was the last rings champion, which happened in 1982. The Huskers had 5 All-Americans, so it's not like Asher Cohen did everything for this team. And some of the momentum that was built within this season from Nebraska's perspective, it wasn't just their home meets and what they did on the road. They were able to also host the Big Ten Championships inside Pinnacle Bank Arena. And for those folks that attended that, it was a really neat event because the Big Ten has several elite gymnastics programs, and Nebraska competes with them. They go to nationals, and then they just have a really impressive showing. They're at nationals, finishing 4th as a team, 5 All-Americans, and an individual national champion. They had, top 8 finishers up and down the lineup. That was really cool stuff. Congrats to Coach Chamelka and his boys for competing at such a high level this year.
Yeah, and with Cohen finishing in first, you know, what stands out to you most that they finished 4th nationally? And, I mean, how big is this for the program?
It's pretty big. It shines a bigger spotlight on this program. Not that they don't already have it, but it's having something like this. And, you know, whether you are interested in gymnastics or not, this is just a fantastic story. This is a story of resiliency and triumph for Asher Cohen and this team. And I remember their first home meet, which came weeks after Mr. Hartung's passing. You know, they had patches and there were posters with Jim's likeness on it that the team was signing, and they did everything so tastefully, so emotionally. And then for the folks that watched the national championships here this past weekend, when Asher Cohen saw his score, the emotions that poured out of that young man, it was elation, it was heavy-heartedness, it was everything, not to mention all the hard work that was poured into getting to the top of the medal stand.
And so what does a finish like this kind of say about where the program's headed?
Well, they're good. Everybody knows that. Nebraska is very good. They've finished in the top 5 every year since 2017. So, maybe this helps with recruiting, getting a couple more guys on campus and being able to commit to Nebraska. And it further validates Chuck Jamelka being able to develop really elite talent and get them a gold medal.
Yeah, and speaking about some top teams here, that's exactly where Husker softball is, at the very top of the Big Ten standings. And if you follow Softball America, that's where they say Nebraska sits as well. I think dethroning Oklahoma at that number 1 spot. So after Nebraska took the series against Minnesota to improve to 36-6 overall and 17-1 in conference play. So Kevin, what's making this softball team so dominant right now?
Well, they have a great cast of seniors. They're going to be recognized. Senior Day for Nebraska softball is this upcoming Saturday. Hopefully the weather plays nice. It's going to be either 1 or 2 o'clock start at Bullen Stadium. And don't plan on leaving early. They're going to do Senior Day festivities following the game against Iowa. And there's going to be a lot of individuals that are going to be recognized. The Kamenzen twins and, of course, Jordy Fromm. And so to answer your question simply, Danny, I hate to oversimplify it, what's making the season so special? Well, Jordy Fromm is the reigning National Player of the Year, and she's playing at that level, if not even better this year. Her supporting cast has been productive up and down the lineup. Their fielding has improved. And then Alexis Jensen, the sensational freshman, a pitcher for Nebraska who can also hit, she has added so much pop to that lineup, and she's been able to take some of the stress off of Jordy in the circle. There are some games the fans show up, they don't know who's going to be pitching. You would think with Jordy Fromm on the pitching staff that it's an automatic, she's the starter. That's not the case. They're able to work in Kylie McGee. They're able to work in Alexis Jensen. So they spread out the innings pitched. And when Jordy is not pitching, she's playing first base. Sometimes she's in the DH role, and she's just having an electric year. She could repeat as National Player of the Year. And if you're following Nebraska softball, yes, they've had this ascent. They're at 33 wins right now. Mm-hmm. It's about the time that you start looking into postseason. How does this season, which has had 33 wins, play into postseason? Well, Nebraska is pretty much a lock to host the regional. They're in fantastic positioning to host a super regional. If you have a super regional at Bullen Stadium with the crowd support and fan interest that Nebraska's had, you have to believe that the Huskers are going to be favored to reach the Women's College World Series. In supers, you have to win 2 of 3. Mm-hmm. Don't know who the opponent's going to be. It's going to be somebody good, but guess what? Nebraska's really good too.
Yeah, I mean, they made it last year, and that was fun to watch them keep going and get towards the end. But as they kind of near the end of this regular season, how important is it that they stay sharp here as they head into the Big Ten tournament and regionals?
It's super important, but the schedule, the heavy hitters on their schedule have kind of passed by. So, they had the huge series against UCLA, and they came out of that series winning a couple of the games, 2 of 3, and UCLA is one of the best teams in college softball. They've navigated a challenging stretch in the non-con, but if you peek ahead, they have Iowa coming up this week, and then they have Penn State, and now comes the Big Ten tournament. But by the time the Big Ten tournament hits, the resume is the resume. So I truly feel like Nebraska's chances of hosting for a regional and then super regional, the case has already been made. Mm-hmm. And so what lies ahead? In my opinion, 6 more wins lie ahead. And there's no reason to doubt that they might sweep these next 2 series. I know that, expecting a sweep, it's a little lofty, but the way that this team has played, it's also realistic.
Yeah, and then they kind of have, I guess, a tune-up game here tonight against the Omaha Mavericks. That's at 6 o'clock. The game will be aired on Nebraska Public Media and streamed on Big Ten Plus. Shame that the number 1 team in the Big Ten has to play on Big Ten Plus, but here we are. We have the same conversation with volleyball when that happens as well, but going to air, Big Ten Plus, Nebraska Public Media, and can be heard on the Huskers radio network. And as for baseball, that Husker team is also going to be in action at the same time, but they'll be on ESPN Plus, taking on Kansas. So what are your thoughts on how they've been looking, back in the rankings here now at number 20?
They're looking really good. But before we get to the overview of Nebraska baseball, since you have the graphic up, Danny, Nebraska, this is top 25 matchup, top 20 matchup. This is huge. Kansas is actually ranked ahead of Nebraska, according to D1 Baseball. Jayhawks are 16. Nebraska's 20. Remember what happened a couple weeks ago when Kansas played in Lincoln? Will Bolt got ejected. There were some controversial calls. So there's some juice in this game already. Now you mentioned that both of these teams are in the top 20. And Kansas, this is no coincidence, they are encouraging all their students to come to Hoagland Park to watch this. It's going to be an electric atmosphere for a Tuesday ball game down in Lawrence because of the previous meeting, because of the ranking, and because of some of the things that could be at play here tonight. This is going to be a sneaky fun and hugely important Tuesday game here late in the regular season. RPI-wise, these baseball teams, they all monitor the RPI, and, Nebraska's had its big RPI gaining games throughout the course of the season. Not a whole lot lie ahead. So right now, it's kind of like that last stand to say, here we are, committee.
Yeah.
Give us a host site for the NCAA regionals. If you win in Kansas after sweeping USC.
Yeah, that was huge for them.
It was huge. And so now the resume looks a little shinier. So that's what's all at play tonight. This is going to be fun down in Lawrence.
Husker baseball now 31-9 overall, 15-3 in Big Ten play. Does that series win against USC kind of change the way you view Nebraska heading into this final stretch?
Yes, 1,000%. I think that's one of those series, and who knows the last time that it was a ranked conference series inside Haymarket Park. Nebraska, depending upon the poll you look at, they weren't ranked in all of them, but the Huskers have been in and out of the poll, and we know that this team has a pretty high ceiling. To have USC come here with the pitching staff that USC has to win on Friday night against one of the best arms in college baseball, and the way that they won, a walk-off bunt in extra innings. What a great moment for that team. Then they follow that up with a run rule win where they just mash the baseball on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the bats stay hot, and 21,000 fans were there. So, that paints the picture of what May could look like, June could look like in Lincoln at Haymarket Park should Nebraska host a regional. Because right now, the NCAA selection committee knows. One, tickets are going to be sold. Two, it's going to be really vibrant in terms of the atmosphere that Lincoln can provide. Now do they have the team that can align with all of that? And I think that the resume says absolutely. What are the Huskers up to in the RPI? I had this pulled up earlier. Nebraska's up to 14 in the RPI. And you're playing Kansas tonight, 22 in the RPI. Again, you're gaining more points. And it's if Nebraska wins tonight, it's almost going to be crazy to think they would not host a regional should they finish strong in the regular season.
Yeah, and we're thinking about regionals, but Big Ten tournament happens before that. And how is this a win against USC really sets them up well? Kansas as well. If they could get that in there, just how does that look? Do you think that they can? Is it three-peat now?
It would be they're back-to-back Big Ten tournament champions. Can they three-peat? Without question. It seems like they've figured some things out. The Big Ten's so good, though. Some people might have heard that and rolled their eyes. Yes, UCLA's number one in the country. They're amazing, right? They have the best player in college baseball. But if you put Nebraska in a one-game, gotta-win-it, down the street in Omaha with 20-some thousand fans supporting Nebraska, anything can happen. So it's not like, the Big Ten's so good. UCLA, USC, Nebraska, how do they fit in? They're playing down the street, and they're playing really well. So that's going to be a fun event. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Big Ten tournament because that becomes before the regionals and then super regionals and College World Series, of course. So if you're looking to buy tickets, that might be wise. However, you might not need the all-session ticket because Nebraska may not play because of the format. They may not play until, Thursday or Friday, which would be great. Save some arms. But from the way Nebraska has structured its pitching staff and some of the things that they've done with their personnel, they've figured some things out. Moving Ty Horn to the bullpen, it seems like he is thriving in that role. He's able to play with a little bit more moxie. You can have a little bit more emotion. When you're a starter, you need to manage your heart rate, right? You don't want to get too high, too low. If you're a reliever and they're just asking him for a couple of innings, yeah, you can go ahead and, be as dramatic and have the antics that you'd like. And his quotes, by the way, have been absolutely outstanding. We love him. Keep him up, Ty, because they're making for great television, great social media clips. And there was even a strikeout he had on Sunday against USC, Ty Horn, after the swing and miss. He put his arms out and he did that gladiator. Are you not entertained in front of a crowd of 8,000 fans? It was such a cool moment. And this season has stacked cool moments. And if the trend continues, there could be some pretty special things happening at Haymarket Park this year.
Yeah, pretty promising for both softball and baseball. As if you're still tuning into this stream a little bit late, on our website, on our app, on TikTok, on Facebook, we're all over the place. We've been talking about softball and baseball, and now we're going to kind of switch gears here to basketball, as Nebraska men's basketball coming off a historic season, and some key pieces are sticking around.
Braden Frager's back. Well, starting in there, right?
Huge.
Bryce Sanford's coming back. That was the big question marks, more so Frager, because we know as a bench player he was going to get interest. He was going to have some schools that are pursuing him. And some dollar amounts behind it. But Nebraska was able to keep the hometown kid in Lincoln, likely move into the starting rotation for next year. Bryce Sanford's back. Cale Jacobson's back. So it's like the roster that Nebraska had this past year of the people eligible to return, outside of a few folks that have entered the portal, nobody outside of Berke Buchtengel that you would go, oh boy.
We're in trouble.
Or we're just a little concerned what's happening.
Yeah,
Berke's going to Vanderbilt, which coincidentally, of all teams, it's one of the teams the Huskers beat in the NCAA tournament.
I know. Always interesting, because why would you want to go to a team that your team, now former team, just beat?
Why? There's one
money.
Bingo. Like there's one answer. And then today
I guess they like what they saw at the tournament.
Today we have news of one other player. Today's the last day you can enter the portal. I'm not going to try to say his name. We'll just play it. See if we can get the audio here.
Ugnius Yaroshevicius.
Yeah.
Just call him Oogie.
Yeah.
He's the big from Central Michigan. He was injured this year, played very sparingly at the start of the year. It seemed like he was going to come back to Nebraska, but he has entered the portal.
Are you surprised that he left, and are you surprised that Frager is staying? I think, maybe a few weeks ago when we talked about who might be staying, leaving, you were thinking Frager was on the edge of leaving.
Danny, I'll tell you this. I'm not surprised by anything that's happened with Nebraska basketball outside of Berke leaving. That was the one that, because maybe it's just because he became such a lovable figure on the basketball team and fans started to have that connection. He was very playful. There was nothing that indicated to us that he was somebody that would pursue another opportunity. So that was surprising. Frager coming back, not at all. Like, for me, I know that there were some uneasy fans. I thought all along that he'd be back in a Nebraska uniform next year. Bryce Sanford coming back, not surprised by that. Now it's just more research of all the players they have coming in. And I'll be honest, don't ask me about it because I'm still doing all my research, just like everybody else.
Yeah. And so some big pieces returning, as you can see on this kind of list. And then Connor Sejan, I think, going to be back after following his ankle injury. He will be a senior. I tried to project what they will be moving into the next season as well. But
be careful putting your time toward that because you can still – I even saw a graphic of somebody not from Nebraska that is entering the transfer portal with 0 eligibility remaining. So it's almost like they're going to enter the portal with hopes of an NCAA waiver getting granted for an additional year. I mean, this is crazy talk.
What a time we live in.
So it's really hard, even in the instance of A.J. Ferrari of Nebraska wrestling. Like, he's in the portal, and he may not wrestle college next year because he's still waiting on a waiver getting approved by the NCAA. It's kind of messy, kind of hard. But we know, of that graphic, yes, Connor Sejan is going to be a senior next year. Cale Jacobson will be a senior next year. I thought it was just, if anything, I think it's kind of crazy that Cale Jacobson puts out a release to say, hey, I'm coming back next year.
It's like what? We know, buddy.
If you are not, is Bergen Riley coming back next year?
That would be the bigger news. But
goodness gracious.
As you continue to do some research on how this team is shaping up, do you think they need a big guy? I think they're getting someone, Caden Betts, is that
correct?
Montana or Minnesota.
Yes.
One of those M's coming in. Do we need a big guy? Like, how's the team kind of shaping
The
up?
guy from Belmont, 6'11", he can shoot it. So they're getting size, but they're getting what is now known as positional length. If you look at some of the additions, for every position that they play, they're just big.
Yeah.
They're long. And it's a little bit Illinois-ish. That's one thing
Okay.
that Illinois had that gave them a lot of success and allowed them to go to the Final Four is positional length is kind of the buzzword in college basketball. Nebraska, when they go out and seek, a player on the wing, they're not just looking for a 6'6" wing player. They're looking for a 6'8", 6'9" wing player that can go inside and crash the boards, can defend at a high level, and can also shoot the three. I think given the makeup of what's coming back for Nebraska, Price, Esijan, Frager, and then the guys that they have added, they're all three-point shooters. Nebraska is going to smoke the three-point attempts record that they set this past year. I feel like the percentage of threes that are going to be shot next year on this team, it's going to be even at a higher rate than this past historic season.
Yeah, they're just going to be they're going to be channeling their inner Casey.
They are, and it's going to be very Fred in the NBA kind of deal,
Yeah.
It's the way he likes to play basketball, and we've seen how it is designed, and we've seen how it looks when it's played at a pretty high level.
Mm-hmm. And now on the women's side, Nebraska has seen maybe some more players enter the portal than we might have anticipating, like Petra Bozon, Jessica Petrie, Haley Weaver, and a few others. But we do have some important returners like Britt Prince coming back.
Britt Prince, Logan Nisley's coming back. And then they bring in a two-time South Dakota Player of the Year, an incoming freshman. The nucleus is there, and fingers crossed, Natalie Potts is going to be healthy and can play next year.
Yeah.
So I know it's so easy to look at the
Outgoing.
exits. Look at what's coming back. And, there is a strong nucleus right there, and that's got to excite Amy Williams and this coaching staff that they are going to have, assuming Potts is healthy. That's a really important part of Nebraska women's basketball for 26-27. If Potts is healthy, Britt Prince, look at how well Britt Prince played as a freshman. She took her game to the next level as a sophomore. What's it look like as a junior? It's pretty exciting. She's going to continue to get better, and now her supporting cast, healthy, improved, should be a lot of fun.
I keep saying Britt Prince is our version of Caitlin Clark. She's very crisp and can hit just some incredible shots that you're like, how in the world did she do that?
And she handles the basketball, and plus she's made clutch shots. You almost have to check yourself. Holy cow, she's a sophomore, and she was hitting a step-back three on the road, with a game on the line.
Yeah.
Sophomores don't normally do that. When you see a junior or senior, you're like, that's been years in the gym, and that's been just knowing defenders and gyms and all that stuff. No, she's just really, really good.
So this movement of who's in, who's out, not really concerning as we have some, hopefully, it's been a while since we've seen Natalie Potts play, and then Allison Widener also been injured, but hoping to come back as well.
My general sentiment on the portal and roster movement for the Nebraska men and women's basketball teams is all's calm.
All's good.
They're the waves are rocking, but at the end of it, it's still calm waters. If Price Sanford decides to leave,
Then
the tide rolls up,
Yeah.
right? Or if Britt Prince decides to pursue something else, those are ground-shaking moves. Nebraska didn't have any ground-shaking moves with either of the basketball programs. So that's where I say, it's all good.
Yeah.
And the coaches, I think, have a pretty good grasp. I don't think either Fred or Amy are, pounding their phone going, oh, my goodness, we've got to fill a pretty big gap. I think they're okay.
Mm-hmm. And so I think you mentioned Ashlyn Copal, right? She's a major piece, 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American, joining the program. How impactful do you think she'll be when she arrives on campus? And what position does she play?
She's a guard. She's going to start right away. That's going to be a really nice tandem with Britt Prince. They're not going to have to handle the basketball unless they want her to handle the basketball. Everything that we've heard, she's an outstanding young lady. we've had our sister station up in South Dakota share some of their stories with us, and just a great ball player through and through. And she's the first McDonald's All-American, first Nebraska signee that's played in the McDonald's All-American game. So she comes with a pretty impressive resume already, and I know from Amy Williams' perspective, they can't get her on campus soon enough.
Yeah, and so what do you think about how this team and this roster is kind of shaping up? Are there any questions that still need to be answered, or they're just looking to
they probably, like, the one concern would maybe be what are they going to do in the post? How do you replace Jessica Petrie, because she was such an important part of the way Nebraska played on the inside. So I got to believe that that's one of their primary pursuits in the transfer portal. And
what about the kind of trade that was made with Indiana, the Hoosier?
Yeah, right.
Odessa Noyen coming over, and we gave her Petrie.
That's kind of the way it played out, right? It's a little bit professional, like, you got a player, we got a player. Just it's all really happenstance with where the players want to go. So I think that setting the expectations for women's basketball next year, given a little bit of transactions with the roster, NCAA tournament probably the goal for next year, and possibly take a run at seeing what kind of damage that they can do at the Big Ten tournament. Big Ten's going to be stacked again, and also the Big Ten, how wild is that? Is that the Big Ten had the college basketball champion, men's and women's.
Yeah.
So, the Huskers were competing with the best of the best, and I hope all the fans that went to Pinnacle Bank Arena, for whether it's the men's team or the women's team, they really cherish the competition that came in here. It's not like you're welcoming a bunch of teams that made the field of 68. No, you're watching teams that made deep runs and were some of the marquee names in college basketball this year.
Yeah, so iron sharpens iron, as they say.